Hello lovely people, and welcome back to this week's new video. If you're new here, hello, my name is Noah. I'm a bookish and lifestyle vlogger, born and raised and still based in New York City. And if that sounds like of any interest to you, I would absolutely love it if you would stick around and subscribe at the end if you so please. As you can tell by the title, I'm back with a new Smash or Pass video, which every time I film one of these I have very questionable thoughts, differing opinions of whether I still like the name of this series, but I'm here to read Gabby's favorite books. Specifically, Gabby Reads here on YouTube. I love her for her recommendations for mystery, thriller, and now horror actually, and sometimes romance. I think we might have a little bit of a different taste for romance books, but I tried my best. I have on a choker and a black hoodie, which she wears her Taylor Swift one pretty often. It's been a few months since I've done a Smash or Pass video. I've been busy now that I'm back in school, but I took the time during spring break to read Gabby's favorite books. I've been watching Gabby for quite some time now, and I really enjoy her content. It might be because she's a Capricorn, but I really love her energy and her relationship with her sister Rachel, who is actually my age. I think that the relationship that the two have is really sweet. I do have a sister, an older sister. We're not as close as Gabby and Rachel, but I can still find some similarities there and relate to her there, and I think it's really sweet. Getting into the 5 books that I chose, I know that only one of them is like an all-time favorite. The 4 other books that I chose are from her like recent favorite videos, like her I think 2019 and 2020 favorites. All-time is pretty hard. If someone asked me to choose, I would have a really fucking hard time. I'd have an easier time picking out year by year because I'm an indecisive bitch. I realized that they are all different genres, which I thought was really awesome. Here, I don't really know a good way to hold them up, but hello, it's these. I hope I did a good job of picking out a good variety. A lot of books that Gabby has read I've actually already picked up because I think we do enjoy a lot of the same mystery thrillers. I'm part of her book club, and we've been having pretty similar thoughts about the books so far. I do love Riley Sager's books. They're a little bit forgettable characters, but the plot is amazing. Definitely will be excited for I think the July pick for his new book. I'm a little bit behind, but I will be keeping majority of them. I still haven't finished 2 of them. It's fine, whatever. Okay, moving into the first book. Vicious is following Victor and Eli. They are pre-med students, I believe, at university, and in this world it's an urban fantasy, and in this world there exists EOs, or extraordinary people. Extraordinary. Do you say extraordinary or extraordinary? Also, that's the washing machine. I'm really sorry if you can hear a humming. But anyway, there exists EOs. For their final thesis, one of them decides to figure out if these people are created or born, and when they figure it out, they try it for themselves, and everything kind of just goes horribly wrong from there. I quickly started realizing that I had no idea what this book was about. I thought straight up that that was a woman, that this was like some sort of dress, but that's like a path of bones. I really only picked this up for this video. I knew that this duology, I think this author is very popular, but I just never had read any of her books before. It's a little bit like Heroes from NBC. So far I'm thinking Eli sucks. He deserves it. So last night I finished Vicious. Afterward there was a little preview of Warm Up, the prequel to this duology, and I was able to find that online after realizing that 5 pages wasn't nearly enough for the whole story. I'm giving it 3.5 stars, which I expected because this is a fantasy, and usually with fantasies that are in a series, the first book's like okay for me because I'm still not quite used to it, and then by the second book I'm giving it higher ratings. Same was for 6 of Crows when I read it for Hannah's favorites. It's also a little bit harder for me to get acclimated to the world of an urban fantasy because it's so similar to my own world that I just find it kind of less believable that something like this would happen. I was looking at the reviews of this on Goodreads, and a lot of people that I follow that I'm friends with have read this, and they all love Victor and Eli. But I really don't like Eli. I'm curious to see like what parts of Eli that they like, because from the beginning, like, he's sort of this charmer that seems to get away with anything because of his looks and his smile, and he just gives off this senator vibe, I guess, which I feel not a senator because senators seem kind of sleazy, but he's kind of a prick with this god complex, and it's like, who gives you the right to do what you're doing when you're the same? So I'm curious to see how, since it is only a duology, how this is going to play out and what's going to happen. I'm not like 100% on Victor's side. I feel like I don't know enough about him to be like he's my favorite. The Troop by Nick Cutter is following a troop of boys following their scoutmaster Tim into the Canadian wilderness for a weekend camping trip on a remote island, when one night this weird looking man stumbles upon their campsite. Tim, as the town doctor, decides to care for him and quarantine him and figure out what is going on, and they realize that he is actually patient zero of a bioengineered experiment that has gone terribly wrong and is highly contagious. This is following the boys on their frickin' journey of survival. Surprisingly, I'm just getting super into horror lately thanks to Gabby, actually. After finishing Vicious, I started The Troop by Nick Cutter. I've had this for a long time. I bought it off of Depop, actually. I'm only 40 pages in, like really little before I had to go to bed. This book is so creepy already. We've met the troop. See, I don't know any of these terms because I don't know anyone in the Boy Scouts. The Scoutmaster, Tim, he has already had to like wrestle down the weird guy that they met in the woods. Obviously, something is wrong with him. He's eating a lot of food. He's eating a lot of non-foods like napkins and shit. Something's crawling in his skin when Nope, that's the author's name. Scoutmaster Tim touches him. So that part is already like so creepy, and Scoutmaster Tim is a doctor, so he knows that something is like up with this guy, but I'm not very far in, but already it's so gross. I read a pretty good chunk of this last night, and let me tell you, this shit is so creepy. Okay, the body horror, I've never read anything like that. I've never read anything involving body horror, so it is extremely gory. Definitely content warning for animal abuse. You know, Shelly, I always knew something was up with that kid. That kid is sinister. Something wrong with him, okay? I was not having it. Once you see the patterns or like the signs of how this tapeworm thingy starts to infect someone and like how it's going to start, you can kind of tell who's going to be next, which is interesting to see like how their personalities all change because of it. But just like imagining what would become of this person who is infected is so honestly disgusting. What the fuck? I just finished the last 100 pages of this book, and honestly, bravo, Nick Cutter. I haven't read anything like this before. I think this is the one that's inspired by Lord of the Flies, which I own. I bought it like 2.5 years ago and I still haven't read it. Atmospherically, brilliantly done. I think I'm giving it 4 stars though, because I can't possibly give something that's so gory and disgusting like this a 5 and call it my favorite, you know? Will it remain on my shelf? Yes. Did I enjoy it? Absolutely. Gabby? Yes, girl. You have to really stomach a lot of shit that happens in this book, and oh my god. Okay, it'll give you goosebumps 100%. I'm definitely still new to horror. I started realizing that I like to read it, although I don't like to watch it. Holy fuck. Okay, it's an intense read. Honestly, 4.5? Maybe 4.5. Next up was Loveless by Alice Oseman. This is a YA, I think, contemporary. Georgia is headed off to her first year of university, and she has never been in love. She has never had a first kiss, and she has slowly started to realize that the crushes that she has said she has had were all fake, and she's never had a crush on anyone before either. And at college, she hears these new terms that were foreign to her: aromantic and asexual, and she is trying to figure out who she is, what her sexuality is, what everything that she believed in might have been absolutely false. Just her journey of figuring out who she is. It definitely gave me Feel Like Ever After vibes, which I really love. That was my first 5-star year of the year. I am 67% of the way through, and this is great. This is actually my first Alice Oseman. I think that Alice Oseman does a really great job of writing YA. The conversation flows really well. It's just funny, you know, when it's supposed to be funny. Really enjoying Georgia's journey and figuring out where she lies on the sexuality spectrum. Anyway, as a cis heterosexual person, I don't understand the frustrations that someone would feel of not understanding what their sexuality is, with everyone trying to like bombard them with finding someone and hooking up with someone or even just making out with someone. But through Alice Oseman's writing, I'm starting to like get an idea of what that might be like for someone, and then the relief, I guess, or like the feeling of everything finally starting to click together when you do figure it out. I think especially in terms of this book, with it following an asexual character, I have only read like one book following someone who was asexual, but they were like still figuring it out, and it was never made clear in the book. Even on TV, like this book describes, like I've only seen it one time and it was kind of glossed over. It was like 10 minutes out of one 50 minute episode, and then it wasn't talked about anymore. So I'm definitely enjoying like learning more about the different spectrums. It feels kind of too important to be rushing through it, but I have been enjoying reading this for like the whole day. I came across this part about Georgia talking about this new discovery should be a great thing, but in reality it's just making her really angry, because as a fan of fan fiction and like loving romance and romanticizing the idea of romance, she just like hated how everything was just kind of pushed into her face, that the heteronormative agenda was just the only thing that she saw, and that's why it felt like it took so long and it was so confusing for her. That's exactly the point, right? That it seems unnatural, like not normal, not real, because it's not what we see. I think that's why it's so important to keep learning and educate yourself out of what school teaches you, because there's so much more in the world that you don't know about, and so many more views and so many more everything. So I finished Loveless. There were a few times I got pretty teary-eyed. I kind of didn't let myself fall over that edge though of letting the tears fall. I really liked this. I hope I didn't peak, because I'm giving this honey 5 stars. Oh my gosh. I think I had the same feelings with Felix Ever After, of that feeling of like self-discovery and feeling like finally understanding yourself. It felt like such a privilege to be a part of that journey for this literally a fictional character, but I enjoyed being there. There were times when I thought that Rooney's side situation was a little bit weird. I didn't really know where it was going, and at times I was like not into it, or like waiting for it to just hurry up and reveal itself, but it was a really good payoff, and I read like so much of this today. It was glorious. I'm giving her 5 stars, so I have 2 books left. I really hope I didn't peak. Amazing. This is the Bromance Book Club by Alyssa K. Adams, and this is following Gavin, who is a pro baseball player in Nashville. The book opens with him drunk, a little bit hungover, I guess, still a little bit drunk, in a hotel room crying about his marriage because it is falling apart. His wife has now asked for a divorce. He then has joined a secret romance book club filled with the men of Nashville, in which they read very, very steamy romance novels to try to reignite the romance within their own relationships. I'm a little over halfway of this book, and it's a little bit weird. I mean, they are taking a Regency romance book as gospel, as their Bible, but I think it's a little bit sweet because you are getting to read the Regency romance as well. It's definitely not the best I've read. I do love a good Regency romance, but it's just, that's not the part that's doing it for me, right? It's cool seeing what's happening in the book and how the men, specifically Gavin, are trying to take that and apply that to his own life and his situation with Thea. I really like both of them. Gavin is sweet, but I can definitely see Thea's frustration, and I would definitely side with her in this situation. If anyone, I'm probably Liv. I'm always going to be that protective younger sister. Like, I'm loyal to the core. That's my Enneagram. I can see Thea's frustration because she's left in a place where she doesn't really know anyone, she doesn't really have any true friends, and she basically gave up her whole life. I think that the support group that Gavin has is funny, and I wonder like if the wives, after they've patched things up, ever found out that that's what they were doing, and if they still read these romance novels just to be able to like spice things up in their marriage every now and then. Me in a bookstore, but also me. Immediately after finishing this, I looked at Gabby's review on Goodreads, and we basically have the same exact thoughts about this book. But in terms of rating, she gave it a 4.5 because of how the ending went. It was a little bit too cheesy, which I also felt. It was like the last 7% of the book, and I was like, there's a lot of back and forth, seemed weird, but I decided maybe I could let it slide and give it 5 stars because it's only 7% of the book, but it's the last 7% and the ending is pretty important. I'm not sure what I should give this. I literally have the same thoughts as Gabby did. Like, she mentioned the whole washi tape part, that art supply date that I did in the previous clip. I loved that scene so much because I could only imagine like what it was like for Thea to be taken to a place that she really loved and like being able to share that with Gavin. Now I don't know if I want to give it like a 4.5 or a 5 star, but it's a romance, you know. I feel like the ending is supposed to be kind of cheesy. Lastly, we have a mystery thriller, and this is Long Bright River by Liz Moore. This was my December 2019 pick, and I've been holding off reading it until this video. It kind of just worked out that I had held off for so long when I realized that I wanted to read it for Gabby's video. But this is following 2 sisters. Casey is an addict, and Mickey is now a police officer. In her area that she works, the police beat that Mickey runs, walks, there is a string of murders happening, and when her sister Casey disappears, she is afraid, thinks the worst, and she needs to find out who the murderer is, or at least try to find her sister before Casey just becomes another victim. This alternates between present day and the sister's childhood. I'm about 40 pages away from being halfway through. I'm actually reading a good amount today, but because I'm cutting it really close, I did wake up extra early to do a little bit of reading before class. From the beginning, you can tell from the tone that it's very dark and solemn. I thought that it would be told in dual perspective, but we're only getting the perspective of Mickey, the cop, or Michaela, which I guess makes sense because Casey's the one who goes missing, and us hearing her perspective would ruin the point. We're slowly starting to learn a little bit more about Michaela. Mickey, she's not very talkative, but you can tell she's estranged from her family. She's a single mom. Getting to see the flashbacks of what they were like and how their relationship were, the 2 sisters in their childhood, is definitely really helpful. It adds a lot to how much pain Michaela goes through. She's kind of really desperate to find out what happens to her sister. That's where we're at so far. There's not a lot of information. There was a little bit of a mic drop where I left off. With the tone of this book, I honestly think that Casey is dead. Okay, I found the audiobook because I'm like so behind. I'm supposed to upload my video today, and so I'm listening to the audiobook while I pack and like do all the shit that I need to do, and hopefully I can quickly edit my video, upload it, and then get out. The audiobook is great. I know Gabby listened to it and then read the book physically, so she's read it twice in a year or something. I'm following a little bit with the book, but we're up to the point. Why? There was like a twist that I did not see coming. What the fuck? Now I'm scared. But there's like so little of the book left. I think there's like 20% of the audiobook left. 15. I'm a little scared. Yo, fuck. I finished Long Bright River. I had finished packing, but I decided to stick with the audiobook still. Wow, this is a tough read. I don't read much books about addiction. I think I've only read like a memoir, Beautiful Boy. It felt really raw, I guess. And it sort of still feels like an open wound, but like the hardest part of it is possibly over. I really like this. It was a different writing style than I had ever seen before. Not just with like the quotations. There's no quotation marks. It's just like dashes to signify dialogue, but it's not always there to signify it, so sometimes it got a little bit difficult. It definitely was really easy to read, even though I did spread it out. Like once I got into it, like I was into it and I couldn't stop reading. So I think I'm gonna give this 5 stars also, like Gabby did. The audiobook wasn't bad. I'm glad that I was able to experience both like Gabby did. I also decided that I'm just gonna go with 4.5 stars. I know it seems like a little bit too much like Gabby's rating, but I mean, if she thought that, and I genuinely have no idea what to rate it, so I'm just gonna leave it at 4.5. But this one I am gonna give 5 stars. Wow, she's chunky, a little bit intimidating, but like I was right there with Mickey. Having the perspective from her childhood helped a lot more, and just the relationship between the 2 sisters, wanting it to bounce back, definitely was driving a lot of the emotions that I was feeling while reading this. Let me pull up Gabby's review and see if we also had some similar thoughts about this. She said she doesn't like detective POVs. I actually don't mind them. I do read a lot of them. Oh, she said, I love the literary fiction feel to it. Oh yeah, that reminds me. Because it gave me Vanishing Half vibes. That also is a sister relationship, an estranged sister relationship told in the perspective of one person. It definitely is that. Like, even if you don't like mystery books, detective POV books, cop POV books, I think this could definitely be a really good introduction, or like good medium, because she's like not searching for her as a cop. Like, she does have that as her advantage, but she's searching for her as her sister. Plot twist I also couldn't predict. It was definitely making it seem like a really great page turner, and also didn't expect to love it this much. Gabby and I are the same fucking person, okay? I'm giving it 5 stars. Oh my god, I'm really happy I was able to finish this today. Not just because for the sake of the video going up today, but like I am like so happy with the results of this reading Gabby's favorites. It has never turned out this well. I'm fucking amazed. Wow, Gabby, girl, you and me, same wavelength. I mean, the fact that I said that I'm keeping all of these, I think just says a lot. I definitely will be keeping up with a lot of the recommendations that Gabby has been putting out. We do have different Stephen King favorites, so that's interesting. I know she loves Pet Sematary, but I would say that I love Green Mile and Misery. I do still want to read 11/22/63 because I saw Gabby's vlog on that. So anyway, there's just a lot, but I definitely will always be taking Gabby's recommendations because they definitely align, which is pretty amazing because she might be the only one that it has aligned very, very well. Also totally forgot to mention A Little Life. I think that's the book in her profile picture. I love that book so much. It is heartbreaking. Never recommend it to anybody. Okay, the point is A Little Life is amazing, but I just wanted to say I also love that book. Love that. So I hope you enjoyed. If you have any other booktubers that you'd like me to do for this series, please let me know. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on my next video. Bye.